from the beginning of the 3rd millennium BC and until the 6th century AD. The Druids lived on the territory of Central and Western Europe, a closed caste of poets and priests, spreading their influence from Gaul to Ireland. Possessing enormous knowledge in all spheres of human activity, the Druids were of paramount importance in the life of the Celts. For mere mortals, they were intermediaries between gods and people. The Celtic priests kept everyone in subjection, including kings, and enjoyed unlimited power. The cult of Druidry implied the worship of the forces of nature. Druids were the guardians of wisdom, ancient tales, heroic sagas, and relics. The Celtic people, having a developed culture, rich mythology, and interesting traditions, did not leave behind any written evidence. All the information about the Druids and the Celts in general that modern historians have is just information and notes about the Gallic War, which came from the pen of Gaius Julius Caesar and mentions of other Greco-Roman authors. Modern people tend to associate Druids with a certain religiosity, although none of the ancient authors mention the Druids as representatives of a religious cult or teaching. Historical records rather indicate that the Druids were more like the intellectual caste of ancient Celtic society. In the writings of Caesar, the Druids are described not only as priests, but also as politicians, scientists, healers, and keepers of legends and poems. The original meaning of the word Druid has long been lost to history, but there are several guesses. The word Druid comes from the combination of two or more Celtic words meaning knowledge and oak, or one who knows the oak. Some sources note that the Druids emphasized their special status in society with long white robes and, possibly, unusual headdresses. The helmets that archaeologists found do not have any military significance and, according to experts, may belong to the Druids. Such headdresses were usually decorated with bronze details in the form of leaves, cones, or horns. These helmets were not suitable for battles, but were used only in ritual processions or parades. Druids played the role of intermediaries between people and gods. It was believed that making a sacrifice to the gods on behalf of the priest would make them more merciful to people, which means they would send them less difficult trials. The Celtic priests essentially had a monopoly on religious ceremonies, so anyone who refused to comply with their demands risked being excommunicated from the rituals. Such a person became wicked and an outsider, and could be subject to a taboo or a spell. For example, the most harmless type of taboo is a refusal to eat a certain type of meat. If the taboo was not observed, the Celts believed that the culprit or his relatives would soon die or suffer misfortune. Druids also prepared potions, with the help of which, as medieval historians believed, they strengthened their taboos and spells. However, according to modern experts, the connection between rituals and witchcraft is nothing more than an attempt by medieval Christian writers to denigrate both the Celtic priests themselves and pagan cults in general. The Druids were knowledgeable about healing and natural medicines. They used herbs to treat some diseases and prevent them from spreading within the tribe. For example, mistletoe was the sacred herb of the Celts. It was considered a traditional symbol of life and fertility because mistletoe retains its leaves even when the tree on which it grows loses them. The Druids believed that mistletoe had miraculous powers, making it the best remedy for illness. A couple of thousand years ago in Europe, there were several hundred Druidic educational institutions, the best of which were considered Tara, Oxford, Iona, and Anglesey. Most often, capable youth from the upper strata of society became neophytes of the order. The Druids introduced the Gallic aristocrats to the secrets of nature, gave them deep knowledge in the field of astrology and astronomy, and instilled in them feelings of military patriotism. Even though the Druids themselves were not liable for military service, they skillfully cultivated the military spirit in young people. They carefully guarded their knowledge, so they taught only orally, and the lessons themselves took place away from people, in caves, forests, and rocky gorges. Caesar in his notes suggests that the main reason why students were forbidden to keep notes was the reluctance of the Druids to make secret knowledge publicly available, so as not to lose their influence. In addition, this is how the students developed and strengthened their memory. Because of such secrecy, ancient authors had to only guess about the internal content of the teachings transmitted by the Druids. The first stage of Druid training lasted 7 years. At this time, they were studying ancient scrolls and sacred poems. At the first stage of training, the Druids dressed in green clothes. At the next stage of training, the Druids changed into sky blue robes. They must have known about 700 special chants. It was believed that at this stage they were admitted to especially sacred knowledge. Here the training was aimed at feeling the music and energy of the surrounding world. After long training, the Druids were ordained as priests and changed their previous attire to white. Chief Druids wore wreaths of sacred oak leaves. This third stage of training took 20 years. They were the ones who performed all religious rituals and were endowed with power. Initiation into one or another dignity took place only on strictly defined days of the solstices and equinoxes. The sunrise after the longest night of the year was celebrated for several days. The peak of this holiday was December 25th. Many Druid rituals were associated with the forest. The people believed that the extraordinary abilities of the priests were manifested in the sacred groves. According to legends, there they transformed into animals, became invisible, predicted the future, and changed the weather. The Druids treated trees as animate beings, comparing them to people. Oak occupied a special place in their cult practice. This tree was considered the bearer of knowledge and wisdom. Perhaps that is why the priests spent most of their time in oak groves. In Druidic rituals, a place of honor was given to mistletoe, which they considered a symbol of immortality, female fertility, and male strength. According to the Druids, the juice of mistletoe berries promoted rejuvenation, helped with infertility, and had other medicinal properties. This plant was used by them when drawing lots and predicting the future. Caesar wrote in his writings that sacrifices were popular among the Gallic Druids. According to him, the Druids could count on the help of their gods only if they sacrificed a person. The victim was chosen from prisoners, convicts, or even innocent people. Before making a ritual sacrifice, the priests looked after the unfortunate man, and when the hour of death came, they carefully watched him. The Druids believed that agony, blood spattering, or even seeing a body fall to the ground could shed light on the future. For example, not long ago, the well-preserved body of a young man was found in a peat bog in northwest England. The find was named the Lindau Man. The remains show how the Druids cared for the sufferer before sending him on his last journey. Lindau Man lived at the turn of the 1st and 2nd centuries AD and was killed at the age of 25. Scientists have found that before his death, his mustache and beard were carefully trimmed, and his nails were trimmed evenly. A study of the digestive tract showed that several hours before death the person ate burnt grains of wheat and barley, as well as mistletoe pollen. The first persecution of Celtic priests began during the Roman Empire. Rome saw the Druids as a binding force for the cultures it was trying to conquer. The Romans purposefully destroyed the Druids as the supreme caste, which actively resisted the Roman invaders. Several emperors tried to completely eradicate the Druids, notably Tiberius Claudius. Despite the systematic murder of the Celtic priests, the constant looting of their sanctuaries, and the destruction of their sacred groves, Rome was never able to get rid of these cult ministers. New persecutions began with the arrival of Christianity in Western and Central Europe. These were more successful campaigns. Druids and the Celtic religion almost completely disappeared by the 11th and 12th centuries. However, starting from the 20th century, there has been public interest in the teachings of the ancient Celts. In October 2010, the British Charity Commission officially recognized Druidry as a religion. By 2020, several tens of thousands of Britons considered themselves Druids. However, modern Druid movements are not directly related to the ancient Celtic priests. Thanks to everyone who watched this video to the end. To find out about the latest releases, you just need to subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. Also, leave your thoughts in the comments and give it a thumbs up. See you soon.